Man of 29.
Yesu, sing. Yesu, jagwat mohero, okecha ndalo duto. An okachal gimoro kawuotho koda nyaka chieng'. An okachal gimoro owuotho koda nyaka chieng'. Nawe yo nalal mar to en owuon odwara. Noting'a mosego ketho no mor kotera dalane. Noting'a mosego ketho no mor kotera dalane. Kalek mamit kar pi otera kanyo pile. Okwayo orito, o Yesu jakwath mang'won adier. Okwayo orito, o Yesu jakwath mang'won adier. Katho nitie adagi ka Yesu bedo koda. Yo osiro en bende emotelona. Yo osiro en bende emotelona. Opedho mesa nyimaka, otimo sap misango. Omiya mor gi cham maler. Remb Yesu miyo chunya yom. Omiya mor gi cham maler. Remb Yesu miyo chunya yom. Kendo kamati onge nyang, igwedha ndalo duto. Jakwath maber adendi e odi ndalo duto ka. Jakwath maber adendi e odi ndalo duto ka.
(6:18). The rest of the cells we will present when time allows. Stand up for Jesus. Stand up, sing. Stand up for Jesus. Ye soldiers of the cross, lift up his royal banner. It must not suffer long.
Let's believe and pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for having taken us through the singing session, Father. Even as the next program comes in, how we beseech thy presence to abide with us and grant us victory. For we pray, trust and believe in Jesus' name.
Thank you. Happy Sabbath. Choristers, thank you for the program. I hope and believe that we will still sing in the coming hours. But at this point, it is important for us to have a study as was scheduled in the program. And our study will be just the way we had imagined it, that it should be. So I would like to request a deacon or two to help me arrange this with the camera. We are going to have a study even with the people abroad. So it is important to be guided by the cameraman on the cities. Amo, just come, Eric and the team, to help me set up the stage. And the deacon, under your authority, can you help those who are out to come in? Or we set another study outside. They can run as a conference, another session and another session, but it is still for the same thing. Or while growing up, some people were measuring what a man is, even through masculinity. Welcome, Carol. Some people would ask you to just move a certain thing, carry this one, and the moment you find it's too heavy to carry, they are asking, what kind of a man are you? Has somebody had that? What kind of a man are you? So to that kind of a person, a man is one who can lift very heavy stuff, yeah? And the other one, in some other sector or cultures, you growing up together with girls, and you are the one, when you're probably passing through somewhere dark and is very feared, you are expected to be the one in front because you are a man. Have you had things like that? Yeah, what? And when something scares you, you are not supposed to run before ladies. I mean, girls are supposed to run and you are supposed to remain behind. Ama ni mimi ndio niliona vitu kama hizo. So growing up, we grew up thinking that doing all those is what makes a man real man. Then we became Christians, but trust me, those ones never left. So even while we are still Christians, remember the things we grew up with somehow didn't leave us. They are still with us, and so even in Christianity we still find elder people are still mixed up between what they were supposed to do to make themselves men, and when they have become Christian and even in the mature age, you don't know the distinction where you should have left that one and picked a new definition of a man. So this Sabbath, being an AMM Sabbath, will be very powerful in terms of helping us as a church wholly to understand what really is a man. So we are going to look at a man in all perspective, including biblical perspective. We are aware that many times you have been told, Bwana Suda, anywhere, that be a gentleman. But sometimes you don't even know what is this that we call a gentleman. So we have Carol would also help us understand from the angle of ladies, and many ladies are also in the congregation. I will need someone to help when we come back to the congregation with another microphone that moves around, because we will be picking questions and also comments from the congregation as we go on with this conversation around defining what a man is. Elder Patroba brought us very close to the topic of this evening. Kindly control children so that they don't run around too much. Elder Patroba brought us close to the topic of this afternoon. And where you left it, Elder Patroba, where you took us to the next book, which was part of our books for this Sabbath, where the 4 men brought one man on a bed, and even the moment they realized that they could not get closer to Jesus because of multitude and other problems, they had to go through the room and bring the man to Jesus. The main objective was to bring a man to Jesus. That was very powerful. But even as we are going to look at that as well in our conversation and in the study, I want to just touch around in the Bible this story of a man. In the sermon you told us, this man said, I do not have a man. But you remember Goliath said, give me a man so that I can fight with him. Just the same thing I was telling you. Goliath wanted a man because he looked at the whole army of Israel and he was seeing things that don't even match the stature of a man. So he told them in that book, if you have your Bible, give me a man so that I can fight with him. In the book of Kings, we find people like, I think I have preached about this before here, people like Elijah. When the Aramaic king had already found the man in the so-called Elijah, when they found Elijah, Elijah told them, I'm not the man. I mean, let me introduce you to the man. I am not the man you are looking for. and this is not the way going to that city. So we have a lot of stories around the Bible talking about men. But today we want to look at both in the Bible and probably outside to really understand. The other part we will be looking at is, this is an introduction to the conversation and the study. The other part we are going to look at, outside there, meaning after this fence, we know for sure that the estate, the neighbors and the nation expect that at some point there is a boy, there is a child, then there is a boy, or a boy, then there is a man. But what is different with us, because today we will be telling everybody, as long as you are a male, you are a man, so you are a member of the AMM or Adventist Men's Ministry, and ladies will also be saying the same. Ama nasema uongo. Ladies will also be saying, all of you, ladies, from the one who is born today to the oldest one, you are part of the women ministry. So is it possible that when we become Adventists, we no longer have things like a child, a girl, and a woman? Everybody is a woman belonging to women ministry. Everybody on the other side, male sex, is a man belonging to the Adventist men's ministry. Then we will also be able to find out what is it that Meshach, Elder Patroba, or any other person here possess that is different from any other gentleman out there. Somebody who would be out there who is not an Adventist by faith. But if they are really gentlemen, the way we are going to define what a gentleman is, now what do I have above them? And Adventist men, are they supposed to also be gentlemen? Anyway, we will find out all that in this conversation. So ladies and gentlemen, allow me to give Elder Dennis Ogola. I know you know him, but I want him to introduce himself for this panel. This is captured Elder Dennis Ogola, so I am sure some people are watching from Central Europe, as you know, and others are watching from elsewhere. So for the sake of that congregation out, you will just have this opportunity to introduce yourself, tell us who you are, even your profession. You don't apologize for reading a book and graduating. Tell us everything around that.
Thank you so much, Brother Meshach. I have been given a task to define myself. And as he has just mentioned, my first name is Dennis. Ochieng is my middle name. No, not very many know the Ochieng name. And the last name is Ogola, who each I inherited from my father. I'm married to a lady called Lynette Komboka, and we have been blessed with 2 children. So I'm very humbled to be here to discuss this topic, a man.
What's your profession?
Okay, my profession. In class, I did information technology, Bachelor of Science in Information Technology from Dedan Kimathi University. But I don't practice it anymore. I do branding and marketing for different companies.
Thank you. Is there someone in the congregation who didn't know that he is a professional in the information technology, who has just known today? Wow, wow. So you didn't have a man, just like Elder Patroba had said. We may be here for 30 years together and we didn't even know who to turn to when we need something like that. Thank you, Elder Dennis, and welcome. Yes, Elder Patroba, you may now introduce yourself with a little more details than what you gave in the morning.
Thank you so much, my elder. If there is a difficult task to do, sometimes is to introduce yourself. But allow me to be very brief on this. By name, I'm Patroba Obola, a servant of God, a sinner saved by grace, married to 1 lady, blessed with 2 boys. Professionally, I'm an IT expert from the University of Nairobi. Allow me to leave it there.
Thank you. Now we know Elder Patroba is an IT expert from the University of Nairobi. I can see Lawrence is saying we can have a word after this. The people from there. The University of Nairobi, who are in the congregation, may I see? apart from Lawrence. Yes, you can see. I mean, you have comrades. So thank you for that introduction. Let me come to the only lady in the panel, and Carol, give us a brief introduction of yourself, what you would want us to know. It is afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Caroline Oyugi Odhiambo, married to Queens Odhiambo. You know him. God has blessed me with 2 kids, Loch and Geno. I am a teacher of English. Don't ask me anything related to English. I'm a teacher of English, that foreign language that came with, you know. Yeah, and I'm yet to be confirmed as a teacher. Apart from that, I love doing counseling. So if you feel like, you know, talking to somebody, if you are overwhelmed, you can come to Caroline. We will share it and it will remain at the feet of Jesus.
Thank you, Caro. Sorry. Thank you, Caro. I'm sure some of you must have heard for the very first time today that Caro is a teacher by profession. How many have heard for the first time? Now, if you are looking for someone to also give your child tuition to pass English, remember English is the language they use to set all other exams. So you can imagine how English is important in that angle, yeah? So when you are looking for a teacher, Elder Sewe, to tutor the little young man, you now know Caro is an English teacher. Once she has done her work well, the rest of the teachers have very easy tasks. People don't fail in exam because they don't know things. They simply did not understand the language. If the language was very well defined and they understood, every other person will score probably a minimum of A and above. So thank you, my panelists, for having this opportunity to discuss with us. Elder Dennis, I want to begin with you just on a brief, how you understand a man. I mean, don't even try to think as an elder of the church. Just you, how you understand a man. We will come into the details in the Bible later. But how do you understand a man generally?
Thank you, Brother Meshach. I want to testify that when this task was given to me and I was going through to know whether I know what it is to be a man, I want to confess that it was the most difficult task that I've ever seen. Yes. Because I was going through materials and I realized that there is no actually a meaning that is attached apart from the one that is a man is a male human being. So a male human being, but the truth is when we were being brought up, there are things that culture was teaching us about men. Actually, even in the duties, things that we were doing, the activities that we were being related to us. And you see, you'll realize that even as young as you are, as young as 1 year old, 2 year old, there are activities that parents would want you to associate with. And that would define you as a man. Like you realize it was not very common for ladies to go do grazing of animals, hunting. These are the things that perhaps not every lady would be associated with. So you would feel very proud that I have gone to do hunting and you have come back with something to the family. So you would feel more manly. Yes. Because you have related to things that relates to masculinity. Also, there are also other duties that, of course, the world is changing. The other duties like cooking and perhaps cleaning of the things in the house that in the cultural background, it was humanly. It
Yes.
was feminine, and that was culture. But I know things are changing when we now look into the Bible to look unto man, then we'll realize a totally different definition of what a man is. And I believe I will rest it there because that I don't want to preempt the other question that will come ahead.
Thank you. Elder Patroba, you know, the reason why today the Adventist men in this church wanted us to define what a man is because we are talking about Adventist men's ministry. So for us to even go on with the ministry aspect, it will be important to first understand who we are. First understand what men or a man is supposed to be before we embark on the journey of, the ministry aspect. Because how do we now go on with a full ministry when we do not even know ourselves, when the church cannot even define who we are, cannot even understand what aspect of us, that they can use for the ministry and things like that. So define for us what you believe or what you know about a man in just a minute or so before we go into the details of the biblical aspect.
Thank you, my elder, for the opportunity once again. From the biblical perspective, we need to understand who a man is. And I want to go back to the book of Genesis,
Yes.
the book of the beginnings. And I want to believe that is the book we are studying this quarter.
Yes.
And allow me to say that the Bible presents man in the proper context of the creator-creature relationship. Man is someone who was created by the Creator for a relationship. To have a relationship with the Creator God and to also have a relationship with the fellow human being. A man is a person who was created in the image of God. Okay? We are created in the image of God and in the likeness of God. Image, I want to believe that we all know, and the likeness, we all know. But allow me to read from the book of Genesis, just one. This is not in depth. I just want to pick something. And when we study the book of Genesis, I'm bringing this perspective so that we get to understand that the word man as used in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, chapter 2,
Yes.
is inclusive of both gender.
Yes.
Is inclusive of both gender, that is male and female. Now, allow me to read Genesis chapter 1, verse 26. I'll read very fast. The Bible said, "Then God said, let us make man in our image according to our likeness." We must know and appreciate that we are created in the image of God. We are created in the likeness of God. Let them have dominion. After being created, God gives man a responsibility.
Yes.
God gives man a responsibility. Therefore, man, in the context of Genesis, must be understood as someone who has been given a responsibility. Let me rest it there for now. And then when I come to 27, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him what? Male and what?
Female.
And female. Lest we leave this place thinking that when we are talking about man in Genesis, we only mean male. No. In this context, we are talking about male and female, both created in the image of God.
Thank you. Thank you, Elder Patroba. Carol, pick the mic. For you, it will be a bit different because you are also different with us who are sitting here. So for you, give us that perspective of a lady. I mean, who do you consider a man? I mean, men have considered themselves from Elder Ogola to Patroba, and even a few that I have mentioned. We were taught to imagine that masculinity is what makes us men or a man. To you, from the perspective of a lady or a woman, what do you think about this? What makes a man a man?
Okay, I I always define men or a man from gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like to me, I'll define it from gender roles because this is what I saw in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I will define it from the first gentleman that I knew, my father.
Yes.
My father made me to define men this way.
Mm-hmm.
He's a protector.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who gives the law.
Mm-hmm.
So when things are so tough in the house,
Yes.
he's the one to say, we are going this direction. So he is the lawgiver in our house.
Just hold on just a minute. Amo, I need a secretary. Do we have our secretary around? Is he around? Goodness. What kind of a man is this? Anyway, I need a lady secretary then. Any lady who can be our secretary for this session. It is important to score this because we do not just want to have a study for the sake of it. After this, we will have what has been defined and agreed. Do you want to help us, Sharon? Come close to Elder Witty there and help us. So number one, among the three panelists, they have talked about something around responsibility, if I am right. Caro has brought the other aspect, leadership. I think that is an aspect you've brought because when you say giving direction is more of leadership. So Sharon, find yourself a good seat and an open page. And then from the definition, general definition, we have found two very important things about a man. We have found responsibility and we have found leadership. So all this is what we are going to use as Adventist men from Lakisama. We are going to ensure that leadership and responsibility is seen in the AMO so that when we go to the farthest end, even the end of mentorship, for example, we now need to understand that if Elder Ogola is mentoring a young boy into a man, he now knows that leadership is what you are mentoring in him, and responsibility is another thing you are mentoring in him. So that when we mentor people, we do not try to recreate ourselves in them. Because many times when people mentor younger generation, they create themselves in those people. It is important to be you and let them be them, but you identify the potential in them and you give it an opportunity to grow to become a better thing. So we have found out two things. Sharon, I was talking so that you can settle and capture this before we leave. So one, you capture, from the panel, we have found two things. Leadership, we have found responsibility. So Carol, you are still talking. I will just make sure that I capture those points as we go on. Yes.
He made me also to realize that a man is a provider,
Mm-hmm.
and also one who protects us.
Mm-hmm.
He protects his family. He's the one to defend us out there. We cannot go there and fight on our own.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one to defend us. And lastly,
Mm-hmm.
Dad, forgive me. He used to go to church once in a while, but he taught us about God. So I knew the importance of God from my father.
Thank you. That is still leadership. That is still leadership in a big way. Even though he might not have been consistent with that, but he led you into it. So that is still leadership. So we have found out two very important things about generally what a man is. And I think this is very good also for ambassadors in the house. I mean, this is the stage where we even begin to define ourselves. So, ambassador in the house, may I see you with by a show of hand? Ambassador in the house, carry your hands.
priestly duty was a charge that was that a man needs to do. And in the priestly, you see a priest. Let us now look at the word priest. Priest intercede.
Yes.
Priest intercedes.
Yes.
And if the priest intercedes on behalf of others, look at what Job used to do in the Bible.
Yes.
We are told that morning by morning, Job used to go to confess the sins of his children. Why? Because maybe in the process of interaction and the process of doing their daily activities, they could have angered God.
Yes.
And God's wrath could have befallen them.
Yes.
So a man is a priest. A man is a priest. Beside being a protector, and beside being a provider, he is a priest. And there is this aspect, the analogy that was being given when God was doing his creation. When God was doing his creation, we realized a woman was created for where? From the ribs.
The rib.
From the ribs. So the position of the rib was determining the roles of a man. The position, because it is close to the heart. They were saying the rib was close to the heart so that the man would love.
Could it be also the reason why the rib is here and the arm is here?
For
because
the protection.
if you want to hit my rib now, I will have my elbow here.
Yes, that is now the second.
Is that the protection you guys are talking about?
Yes,
so a woman is somewhere here to. Anything touching her should find your arm.
Yes. So that.
What about men who are now the one hitting them?
I know. They are saying, actually, that analogy was giving that as a woman, somebody to love.
Yes.
The second aspect was that protection aspect.
Yes.
A woman needs to be protected by a man.
Yes.
And the third aspect was the position. He would have removed something from the head.
Yes.
So that a woman would be on top. Or he would also remove something from the toes, so that a woman would be lower. But he decided to remove it from the rib. So to ensure that, there is equality. The aspect of the equality was being brought up.
So when they are talking about gender equality out there, is there any smaller perspective of that in the Adventist church, according to your explanation?
Yes. No, Meshach, if you look at initial the perception of how even women leadership in church is different from what we have today.
Yes.
There are positions that perhaps women would not hold before, but they're holding today. That tells me that the expansion and even the way people are seeing things are changing.
Yes. Thank you. Elder Patroba, just the same question. As a church, we are now a ministry, but probably many of the people sitting here, or even ourselves, might not have taken a minute to think about why the church felt it was important to make Adventist men a whole ministry.
Thank you, my elder. Before I answer that question, the need of the church to have AMO as an organization to a ministry, you'll realize that the main intent here is to make this department an action-oriented department. It now becomes a ministry. We are now being called, when you go back to the initial objective of the AMO, our work was to do a lot of community service, that is visiting people who are in prison, and the orphanages and all that, apart from what we do locally within our church. But we are now being called to be a ministry. We are now being called to be in action in many ways. But I want to pick from my fellow elders, just to highlight something which we need also to get from this sharing. Initially, before sin, there was no issue of leadership. I know somebody may falter that. God created us to be kings and queens of this earth.
Yes.
That's what we were created for. But we realized that after the fall, now all the equation of creation, God's creation, changes. And we now find now this element of the dominance.
Yes.
That's why in chapter 1, I'm still talking about Genesis, chapter 1, chapter 2, before we come to chapter 3, which is the fall,
Yes.
we find that they are not actually separated. They are, when you talk about man, it is Adam and Eve in one.
Yes.
Okay? We were very much equal. But now, this one changes when it now comes to Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Allow me, I want to bring in verse 16. And then to the woman, God said this, I will greatly multiply your sorrow. You can read that. But I want to bring in this element whereby the Bible says, your desire shall be for your what? Your husband, as he shall do what? Rule over you. Now, this one now brings us to this element where we find ourselves now.
Yes.
But we must appreciate one another, our individuality, both male and female. We must appreciate who we are.
Yes.
We must not forget that we were created in the image of God. Now, let me also bring in, as I weigh in, there's a verse that ladies love so much. Let me bring this so that they can get it. In the element, I know it's been mentioned, but we are talking about a man, isn't it?
Yes.
And we want to know who is a man.
Yeah.
And by the end of it all, I don't know if we'll have time also to talk about who is a woman. The book is 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. And I want to believe this is one verse that all ladies have at the back of their minds.
Yes.
Okay? They will tell us that. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his what? Household, he has defied the faith and is worse than a what? An unbeliever. I want to go back to this one word, provide. Now, when we talk about provision, it is both physical provision, and I agree with my elder here. We are now the priests of the house. We have to guide our houses. We have to guide our children in the right direction. And in which direction? Not pointing them to us who we are. You know, many times we want to make our boys to be who we are, which is not the real sense. We want them to mentor them, to make them to be who they are. Because remember, these are just people whom God has blessed us with. And we have to appreciate who they are in their weaknesses, in their strengths as leaders. A leader or a man of the house, let me use the word man. We have to provide this. Now, if we are to break the word provide, it is very wide. Probably we may not find time.
Yes.
In terms of providing security, provide the daily needs of the family, providing leadership. But most of all, we are requested as men. A man has the responsibility to point his household to who? To God. That is our responsibility. But when we are talking about Amo now shifting from Amo to a ministry, we need to understand that we are now in an action-oriented whereby we've been called to go out there. We should not just be seen in suits and all that, but we have now a responsibility. And I want to believe that time will allow so that we talk about a man required to step out, a man required to speak out, a man must stand strong, a man must stay humble, and a man must have a king.
Thank you. I'll be coming to that. I have picked two things for you, Sharon. Elder Patroba has brought the aspect of action. Is very important. We are just picking those things that the Amo in Lakisama SDA Church can use later and now say, this is what we are, and this is what we must now do. So we found earlier leadership, we found responsibility, and now we have found action. So action must accompany all these two things. And Brother Dennis tried to bring something around intercession, a man as the intercessor. And I thought about probably Moses. Even after having the leadership, he is taking responsibility of these people, taking these people to the land. But a point comes where he truly intercede on behalf of this team. So a man must also be a person who can intercede on behalf of the people he is responsible for. So I hope those four are captured well. A man must intercede. A man must be a person of action. A man must be responsible. A man must have leadership. So we are defining at that particular time. I want to come to the congregation for the first round of questions and comments before I come back to the panel. But just in a minute or two, I want to allow Caro to define for us a gentleman. I do not want men to define gentleman from their angle. This one I will be biased to have a lady define what a gentleman is. Because the things I will say a gentleman is maybe are very far from it, and ladies do not even think there is anything close to a gentleman there. So Carol, define for us in a minute or two what, on behalf of these ladies sitting here, if they concur with you, I will understand. I will give them microphone, what a gentleman is. Because it comes to me clear, elders, that even Adventist men are supposed to be gentlemen. So, Carol, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'll define a gentleman. First of all, let me say that the word gentleman or gentleman is a word that the world has coined to define a perfect man according to their own eyes, or in their own eyes. So a gentleman is this man whom the world, you know, we want to see this man who is not soft, he's soft and tough at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how.
Mix both
the
soft
paradox.
and... Uh-huh.
Is soft and tough at the same time.
Soft where necessary, and the other one where necessary.
Yeah,
so in short, you're saying there are necessary times for...
And it's tough.
Okay.
Where necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Is defined as this man who knows himself, he knows what he wants, and he goes for it. Not in a negative way, but in a positive way. Okay, we know all these things. Ladies, you've seen these men who open cars, and if he's married, by 8 he's in the house for dinner. He helps you with the kids. Once in a while, he helps you with the food in the kitchen. When there are issues at home, when your in-laws are on your neck, he defends you.
Ladies, you know those men Carol is defining.
That is how.
You know them.
That is how the world defines a gentleman. When they hear that, oh, that boy, okay, that man is opening cars. Oh, how nice. What? Your man is even washing your kids. Oh, how nice. That's a gentleman. Okay, he's even helping you prepare dishes. How nice. That's a gentleman. So there's a way we have defined, we've just found that word for ourselves. It is not biblical. We've just defined it for ourselves, what we view as a good man out there. So a gentleman is not necessarily a Christian.
Yes.
We have gentlemen who are atheists.
Yes.
But we also have men who are defined as gentlemen, but they are in church.
Yes.
So that's why I'm saying that it is a word that was coined by the world out there to define a good man.
Yes.
To their own perspective.
But now, being an Adventist woman, do you differ with the women or the world out there in defining a gentleman? Maybe that is what you will handle, and then I will bring the mic now to the congregation. Somebody will help me pass the mic to the congregation. Now, as now an Adventist woman, you have said very well, this is what you defined is what the world has coined to define a good man. But as an Adventist woman who you are, do you differ with the world in that, or this one, for the first time, you concur with them on this one? I mean, don't fear.
I'm not afraid.
Yes.
Well, this is what I'll say. I will not use the word gentleman. But what they're defining as a good man is what God is also defining as a good man.
Oh.
Well, in the eyes of God, there is no
Yes.
sin. There is no commandment that, man, please don't stone me if I'm wrong.
Uh-huh.
Forgive
We will
me.
protect you. We are already protectors.
But I have the full support of the book Adventist Home.
Yes.
I will bring it.
Thank you.
What they say is a good man. When I read my Bible and what I read from the spirit of prophecy, to me, they are defining what God is saying, what God wants a man to be like. God wants a man to pursue perfection. So when they are defining this man, I am just seeing a man who is pursuing perfection. Whatever he's doing, the forces behind him doing whatever he's doing to his family, God is behind him. So if he's helping at home, not every day, but once in a while, if he's helping with the kids, if he's kind, if he's humble, he talks, he gives direction and leadership, all that comes from God. It is a role, it is a duty, it is an authority, it is something that God gave him. It is a direct authority from God. So to me, I am not shocked. When I read my Bible, I'm like, if he's an atheist, I'm like, that is a Christian mwenye bado hajajua direction ya kanisa iko wapi. So to me, I'll not use the word gentleman, but I'll say it's a man who is after God's heart. He is pursuing God's perfection. He is doing everything possible to make sure that he does not cause his wife to stumble. In that, asione kwamba asaidiwi nyumbani, awe na machungu na aongee vibaya na kwa sababu hiyo akose ufalme wa mbinguni. So what motivates him to do whatever he's doing, he is saving a soul for heaven. That's how I define that man. A man who is raising a home for God. A man whose main aim is to ensure that his family is saved, just like the family of Noah.
May as many as of the ladies in the congregation say aye. The ayes have it. So I'm coming to the congregation. Kindly, let me have someone, young guy, come forward and help me with the microphone to the congregation. Oh, there is one already. Okay. I want ladies, I'm coming to men, but I want to pick 2 or 3 ladies in the congregation to help us understand the aspect that Carol brought. There was this aspect of when there is need to be tough and when there is need to be soft. Let's ignore the soft first, because soft does not harm anyone. Ladies, when do you think we need to be tough? When we need to be tough. I want ladies to define for us when we need to be tough, because when we need to be soft will not harm them anyway. So our being soft will be an added advantage, kind of. But when do we exactly need to be tough? Because that's the key point we want to pick, so that later on we can say, you now have men in this church who are actually gentlemen, who are actually real men. So 2 ladies, 1 or 2, who can tell us one of the instances when you think a man should be tough in the context of this conversation. And then I'll come and pick the rest of the questions and answers from any other person. 2 ladies who want to jump into that quickly. We are remaining with 30 minutes. 2 ladies who want to jump. Ladies first. No lady has anything. Are you floating? Like you're not understanding what we are discussing? Or your husband is here, you fear telling him when he needs to be tough. I know. You can send me on a text message. I will delete your name and read it. Because exactly when are they supposed to be tough? When you leave it open and too general, that we want a man who, when needs be, they are tough, when need be, they are soft, we will not know when that need has arisen. So, yes. Give the microphone.
So I think I'm just back to you so that you take it back to the ladies.
Yes.
The word tough is a man who will go through the wall.
Yes.
But the word tough can also mean that this man can be firm. When he has said this is the direction to go, then he remains firm. That is where we are. When we are supposed to worship God, that is the way we are supposed to go, not through other means. Maybe we can worship him this way. That is the soft part that he was talking about. So my word would be firm. Tough is the direction that we used traditionally, where when you cry, unalia nini kama mwanamke. That is the tough. But that is the tough that we're saying that we are running away from. I would rather we use the word firm, so that when you use firm, you are an Adventist. And what you believe in is what you submit to the will of God, regardless of what comes your way. It is God has said it. What does God say? That's where we are going.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me pick comments and questions in the congregation around this definition first. If there is anything my panelists and I may have missed, then we get Sharon to note down. Yes, Elder Sewe.
Thank you so much. I have two things to add to the discussion. And this is just in addition to what the panelists have already raised up. I was reading through Galatians chapter 5, and I realized a man is supposed to be someone loving, meaning if you're given a family, you're supposed to love that family. You're supposed to sacrifice so much for the sake of that family, because even Christ sacrificed for us, or for the church, left all the glory in heaven, came down to die for man, and then show us the way that through whatever he underwent, we are also able to win up and come victorious. Number two, man is supposed to represent God here on earth, because the very first time God created man, he expected man to be in his image and likeness. And that image doesn't necessarily have to be stature, color, or posture, or anything, but in terms of character. What is your character as a man? Congregation, I want to pose this question to you. Have you never seen a man do something in the society until everyone marvels and says, what sort of a man are you? It means your character portrays a lot who you are as a man. So if you have very poor characters, or rather uncouth characters, that even God himself would not be happy about, then you are not man. You are not man, because man is supposed to be a representative of God here, and so that everything that you do, the Bible defines that as Christ was head of the church, so is man as the head of the family. So you, in that position of a representative of God in your family, in the society, you must give direction. And direction comes with responsibility. Direction comes only, again, if you cherish and love that which you have been given. And that is loving the family, loving the society, loving the church, and being firm in matters of God.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ladies, I was really expectant that you will help. Being an AMM Sabbath, I would have sacrificed all the ammo to let ladies speak, so that we can understand your perspective about how you would love to see men in this church look like. But apparently none of you has any issue. The next, yes, Evans.
Thank you, Chairman. I have something. This has been with us for quite some time. You hear that phrase is being floated, be
Yes.
a man, or what kind of a man are
Yes.
you? Then it is on the basis of what someone else can do and you cannot do.
Yes.
Is it to be measured? I mean, if you can do something, then I can't do it. Do I become a lesser man?
No.
Surely we all know Usain Bolt, right? How he runs.
Yeah.
then there was that sentiment, see what your fellow men are doing.
Yes.
Yeah. So is it, if I cannot afford something and someone else can afford it, is there a standard yardstick that we use to place so that all men should behave?
Yes.
In that perspective. Thanks.
So, Evans, what you're bringing is very key, because at the end of the day, here in church we are trying to look holy, but out there, that's what we are thinking. If I can't afford this and Alphonse can afford it, look at what your fellow men are doing, and you can't do. But when we come to church, we are quite holy and we don't want to talk about that anymore. But at the end of the day, it boils into our Christianity at the end of the day. Because in this church, we are teaching many other things, and this is part of it. So out of this, okay, I can see the hands of men on this other, any other person. I want to pick a few from the congregation. I still have a question for this panel. I have seen the three. Okay, 4. All those are men. Only men have something to say. Okay, begin from this end. Sharon, you can also speak. I mean, ladies fear talking about men today. Okay, yes. Question or comment?
A comment.
Comments, okay.
I have a general comment on the definition of what a man is.
Yes.
I will not restrict it to any of the panelists' contribution, but a general observation from my angle. If I were doing a definition of a man from my own scholarly research, suppose I were a scholar doing some research on that, then I would use different cultures. What defines a man, I would use variables. And those variables would be like cultures. If I have a horizontal kind of graph, and this is vertical and horizontal, yes. There are those variables that will go horizontal, those which will go vertical. So I would define a man in terms of cultures at the point at which these variables are at equilibrium, so that the man in his character does not compromise one culture or the other.
Yes.
At that point where he satisfies either side of the graph, the horizontal and the vertical side.
Yes.
Suppose maybe the vertical one is the Christian or the biblical, and the one is the society where you live. You can be an African, you can be a Western person. There is that different culture. Today, just to cut it short, today in the morning I was sitting, basking on the sun in the balconies. Then a distant place, not here. Then a lady came shouting with the name of some man. And maybe they were locked in some room somewhere. Maybe it appeared that she was a wife. And she was demanding the man to come out if he's a real man. In fact, I remember her words in the morning. Kama wewe ni mwanaume, toka nje saa hii na huyo mtu wako umejificha huko ndani. So
kama wewe ni mwanaume.
Kama wewe ni mwanaume.
Yes.
If that man were existing in the real culture of an African,
yes,
I believe angetoka.
Yes.
But because he is living in a world where the culture that dictates the day is so different, he was hiding.
Ako na Yesu ndani.
I don't know.
So hakutoka.
So
okay.
So at such point where there's an equilibrium where you reason that I should come out or I should not, and everybody, where those views crisscross, that is where we define a man.
Thank you. So Sharon, capture something came up before I forget. The aspect of sacrificing came in, I don't know who mentioned it, I think you. So a man must also be this person who can sacrifice on behalf. So we are just trying to capture, maybe they will just be 4 or 5 things, and that will be a good starting point, something we will hand over even to the AMO leadership of next year, that this is what you should pursue with men in this church. and then we will just be what God wants us to be. So the next person, yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Joseph, and I would like to weigh in by posing a question that we can also think through. We have given the delineation or the distinction of what actually a man is. And from our distinctions, we have actually pointed out a functional approach to what makes a man, yeah? And my question is, having this the functional approach to men, then actually gives us the literal, or we actually looking at it from the literal sense, that Elder at some point had hinted to that the definition or the man that was referred to in Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2 was actually inclusive of both male and female, yeah?
Yes.
So the ones we are actually giving right now are applicable to the literal man who is actually a male. Am I right? And if that is the approach we are taking, then it simply means that the characteristics that we are giving are mutually exclusive in this sense that they only apply to men and to men alone. Then the other side of the divide, that is the feminine side, is actually left out. So it means if a man has taken the trait of being responsible, then we are actually not going to have a woman being responsible. If the man is actually identified as being the image or the symbol or the authority of God in the house, then you're actually not going to have a woman being the authority in the house. So my question generally is, we have given the delineation that says a man is, a man is, a man is. So it means that all these are actually for men, and there is a reserve, there is actually for people who are not men, that is female. And I remember the previous guy had mentioned that if we have certain characteristics that apply to a man, and we've said that trail men are in this manner, they provide, they do this. So those that come shy of those standards, does it mean that they are now lesser men or they are not men? Thank you.
I think you have captured that. You will weigh into it. A quick one.
Yes, happy Sabbath.
Happy day.
Happy day.
Happy Sabbath.
I want to speak both as a male and as a female.
Both?
As a male and as a female.
How can you which one are you?
So the reason as to why I started that way is because we are standing here as a binary. We are here as binary under binary definition. We are trying to speak as both male and female, forgetting about the aspect of a male and a female held as one person. So I want to go off that because that is not the subject of study, but I want to retain the aspect of male definition and also the woman definition. That is why I stand in charge of women now to speak.
Yes.
Because when you asked women, the question was a bit radical and frustrating for a woman to stand up to speak. And I want to say, man being told that the woman will be subject to you, that is the effect of sin. So that has first to be laid as a foundation.
Yes, yes.
So we are looking at subjection as a process of sin, but we are standing here as people undergoing restoration. So I will ask you, when we will be restored, will we still have subjection? That is the first question. Because at subjection, the same question disturbs the Pharisees. That when a woman is married with one man, then this man dies. Another man marries the same woman. So who will be the husband to this woman in heaven? Is the question we are trying to deal with. But Christ says that in heaven there is neither marrying nor giving in marriage. So that definition of Christ does not say a man marries, but says that they will neither be marrying nor giving in marriage. So marriage is a two-way traffic. It's not a man marrying.
Yes.
It's a man marrying as well as a woman marrying.
Yeah.
That is the definition of marriage. So when we look at the gender roles, that is a societal construct definition for a man. When she talked about my father's definition, I want to pick from my father's definition. That is not her definition. In a marriage construct, she will find a different definition. So will she remain with the father's definition? That is one presenter said that. So I want to say that as what we call as a man, so a man has feelings. Let me take this two ways. I want to give an illustration. I have feelings. The same way a lady has feelings. I'm emotional. So men cry as well as women cry. Is that true?
Yes.
So if all these people cry, where do we want to say you are crying as a man and this guy is crying as a woman?
Yes.
So that is where we missed the whole point.